Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. 'Cause it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass.
My name's Bill Maloney, and I am a victim of institutional child abuse, as were my other 7 siblings and my mother and my father, who were Irish immigrants who came over to this country in the 50s. And I have fortunately been able to pull up and become not just a victim but a survivor. And I became a filmmaker. I was making dramatic films, and then I made a film, a documentary called Sun, Seeing Satan, exposing fresh evidence on the island of Jersey, especially in a place, a mental institution just 1 minute's drive from Hope de la Garenne, a 600-bed mental institution that has never been investigated, where children were told at Hope de la Garenne if they didn't shut up about their child abuse allegations, they would be sent up to the nut house. I made that film, and 2-3 weeks after that film was sent to all the major broadcasting companies, including your own, ITV. My sister was found dead in her apartment, and cause of death unascertained, even though the coroner's assistant told us we could dispose of her body because the liver was okay and it would tell everything about how she died in toxicology. When we actually got in to the inquest, the coroner tried to get me to take part in a secret meeting with her and the police, to which I refused. I said my evidence would be given in open court. And there was also on that day a major article in the Irish World about Sun, Seeing Satan and my sister's case. And I haven't, again, cause of death unascertained. We weren't allowed to question witnesses in a proper manner. The coroner was very aggressive towards us, and we have heard since, even though we have new evidence and have declared we have new evidence, we have heard nothing from the coroner or from the police. So I now have turned my filmmaking skills into fighting for all the abuse victims out there, and you know, I don't want people to think that all us abuse victims, we are sort of sitting in corners drinking bottles of whiskey at night in dark corners, but I have been there, as have most victims, but now I'm not sitting in the dark corner anymore, and I'm not drinking the whiskey anymore, but I am still fighting for my brothers and sisters who are sitting in the corners. So I would like to say to you all, you've got someone punching for you out here. You know.
It's horrendous, but how do you manage to do this? How are you doing this? How are you managing to be so public? Is this just...
I am the spirit of dark and lonely water, ready to trap the unwary, the show-off, the fool. And this is the kind of place you'd expect to find me. But no one expects to find me here. It seems too ordinary. But that pool is deep. The boy is showing off. The bank is slippery. The show-offs are easy. But the unwary ones are easier still. This branch is weak, rotten. It'll never take his weight. Only a fool would ignore this. But there's one born every minute. Under the water there are traps, old cars, bedsteads, weeds, hidden depths. It's the perfect place for an accident.
Oh, look, there's someone in the water. Quick, use that big stick to get him out.
Sensible children. I have no power over them.
Oh, mate, that's a stupid place to swim. Hey, go over and get that thing to wrap him in. You don't have to feel cold, mate. How long was you in there? Ew, what thing?
I'll be back.
It's very likely that 400 of you will be injured in your cars tomorrow. You'll be within 6 miles of home and doing less than 30.
And it's going to happen to a lot of you ladies. You'll be shopping, collecting the kids, going to the laundrette. For some of you, the face you'll start out with in the morning Won't be the same face you end up with by the evening.
Why let it happen? Clunk, click, it's so simple. Clunk the car door, click the seat belt, even if you are just going round the corner, clunk, click every trip.
Go on, get it. We're not supposed to go in there. Oh, go on, there's a gap down there. A gang of kids broke in yesterday. I saw them.
A 66,000-volt shock killed a boy today when he broke into a substation. The electricity board warns children to keep away from substations. Never try to get toys back yourself. Otherwise, you may not live to play with them again.
Investigation of child prostitution, child trafficking, child abuse, and they are all coming out with the same story. They investigate, they know what the rings are, they know there are people at high positions of power, judges involved, and then the moment they attempt to stamp it out, their bosses close the cases down. So what we are seeing is that the paedophiles are in the very public services who are supposed to be protecting us. It's that simple.
Can you see a time when the dam will burst and it will all come out? Or
I believe things are moving so quickly that something is going to happen in 12 months. In my opinion, it's coming that quickly. But nobody can be complacent. If we want to stop this, you're doing a great job here. Get it on the internet, talk to people. And a lot of people say to me, you talk to people and they won't listen. The rule is if they don't respond in 5 minutes, don't waste your time, move on to the next person.
absolutely.
You effing Americans, who are you to tell us, the rest of the world, that we're not going to deal with Iranians? That's how an executive director with Standard Chartered in London responded to a message from a top official from the Americas. This according to the New York State Department of Financial Services, which claims the bank hid financial transactions tied to Iran.
Okay, thanks, Phil. So in 1988, some interesting things were going on. The leader of the Weather Underground organization, Bernardine Dawn, had spent 4 years working at Sidley Austin in Chicago. And in 1988, Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, about to become married to Barry Sfotoro, joined the firm. And although theoretically Bernardine Dawn left in 1988, I believe the two women, Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, now Michelle Obama, and Bernardine Dawn, the Weather Underground terrorist leader, conspired together with Christine Marcy-Field's sister in Washington on the integration of the software for booking actors in and out of prison or holding pens or deportation areas so that they could move into a crime scene, for example, in the United Kingdom for American actors and in the United States for British actors. And they were integrated through the BBC Crime Watch program, which is about reconstructing crime scenes, and its equivalent in the United States called America's Most Wanted. And the fascinating thing about that is, if you can move these people in and out of crime scenes, you can actually construct the crime scene before the crime has happened. And the people that are then moving through the crime scene before the crime has happened, if they've been given furlough from a jail system, they can be back in jail as soon as the crime is completed. So if you want to do a hit, it makes a lot of sense to pull people through America's Most Wanted in the United States over into the United Kingdom to whack someone and then return them to the United States to put them back into prison. And methinks that that's what's happened with this woman, Jill Dando, who was the presenter for BBC Crime Watch, who in 1999 came home from the, I don't know whether it was a live presentation or whatever, but my guess is that Jill Dando had actually suspected that the BBC had now, or was now, operating a virtual pedophile matrix, using pedophiles inside the prison system as trusties, letting them out for a hit and then putting them back into prison, a la Cray twins. Anyway, someone came up behind Jill Dando as she tried to open her front door, put his left hand around her, forced her down to the ground, and gave her a couple of bullets in the head. I don't know whether it's one or two, but one was probably enough, but the professionals like to use two to make sure she's dead. And folks, this is a cold case. Now, it is the ultimate cold case because this was the presenter of BBC Crime Watch. We now know that the BBC, through its Board of Governors, I happen to know the former Director General Greg Dyke through 911. I didn't know him during 911. I knew him before. I was a good friend of his. I used to play tennis with him. And what I always remarked on was his virulent anti-Americanism. It appears that America's Most Wanted was owned by Rupert Murdoch through an outfit. I'm just scrolling on Wikipedia. Through his interest in 20th Century Fox. And it appears that Murdoch bought 20th Century Fox around the 1984 period, which is a very important year, we'll come to that in a minute, from a couple of investors, one of whom is Mark Rich, who was a fugitive for tax purposes from the American government. Now, fast forward to the January the 26th of 2001, one Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, presumably with a great deal of kickback into the personal accounts of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, this is extraordinary, and I'm just thinking on the fly here, because that means in 1984, the BBC, which we now know or have reason to believe is controlled by a virtual pedophile matrix.
He didn't like Mitt Romney's other favorite sick thing to do was to impersonate a police officer who, as a college freshman at Stanford University, allegedly admitted to fellow dorm mates that he sometimes disguised himself as a police officer, and laid out on his bed was a Michigan state trooper who saw the uniform said he told us that he had gotten the uniform from his father, George Romney, then the governor of Michigan, whose security detail was staffed by uniformed troopers. He told us that he was using it to pull over drivers on the road. He also had a red flashing light that he would attach to the top of his white Rambler. We thought it was all pretty weird. We all thought, wow, that's pretty creepy. And after that, we didn't.